Welcome back to Simply Scratch Kitchen. We are back at the Dollar Tree today with a $15 budget for an entire week. I decided to shop in my older Dollar Tree so that you can really replicate this no matter what quality your Dollar Tree is. So I'm going to go back home and show you what I found at this store and what we're going to make for our meals this week. I ended up spending $15.25 for this haul. I got 1 pound of jasmine rice, this package of spicy smoked sausage, a can of chicken, a can of country style sausage gravy, a can of green beans, a can of turkey gravy, and a can of vegetable beef soup. I also got a biscuit mix, these breakfast sausages, a stuffing mix, a can of baked beans, and then this large package of instant mashed potatoes, which were actually $1.75. For this week's breakfast, we're going to be using this biscuit mix, this package of sausage links, and this can of sausage gravy. I'm going to start by prepping my biscuits for the week. We're going to empty this package into the bowl, and it does call for milk, but I decided to go ahead and make it for water because I didn't budget milk into this grocery haul. Of course, if you have it and want to make it with milk instead, that's great, but I'm just going to use water. And spoiler, they turned out really good with just water, so don't feel like you need to add milk to this meal plan. The package says this makes 12 to 24 biscuits, but I could tell pretty quickly that was not true. So I rolled these out and just prioritized getting 7. So we have 1 biscuit for each day, and that worked out fine. These were a little bit thin, but you'll see how I prepared it in a minute, and it really didn't matter. These were actually super fluffy though, and very authentic tasting. I really like to make my biscuits from scratch when I can, and so I don't normally like these mixes, but this one was quite good. So this is going to be our breakfast for the week, and I'm going to just refrigerate these to keep them good. You could also stop at this point and freeze your biscuit dough and then just cook a few later in the week so that they're nice and fresh. Next, I'm prepping my sausage gravy, and this is going to come together really quickly. When you go to your Dollar Tree, make sure you buy the links instead of the rounds because there's actually more sausage in that than in the rounds. And so we want to just get the most bang for our buck here. I just make sure to thaw these and then chop them before I turn the heat on, and that allows me to get this diced up really fine before I brown it. Next, I'm going to brown it, and once I get a nice sear on it, I'm just going to add my can of country gravy mix. This gravy was quite thick, so I went ahead and added a can of water just to spread it a little bit further, and then I just brought this to a good boil so everything would come together. If you're worried about any of this spoiling before the end of the week, you of course can just put this in the freezer and thaw when you're ready. You can prepare this however you like, but I'm just crumbling the biscuit in my bowl and then adding several spoonfuls of the sausage and gravy on top. This is really simple, but it's so fast to meal prep, and it was really delicious and satisfying and very filling. These biscuits turned out really good, and there was a lot of flavor in this. This will make a great breakfast for my week. Next, we're going to get started on our lunches for the week. We're going to be using this bag of jasmine rice, the sausage, and these baked beans. I'm going to start by cooking up my entire bag of rice according to the package instructions and just getting that cooking. I'm going to finely dice that sausage, so I cut each sausage into 4s and then diced that so that they would be about the same size as the beans. You've probably seen this sausage at Dollar Tree before, but mine had a spicy version, and I thought that would taste good with these really sweet baked beans that they had. So we're going to combine this. I made a recipe like this before with ground beef, and so I thought maybe the beans and the sausage would be really good together, and it's going to be really filling on that rice. There was a lot of sauce still in the can, so I did swish some water in there just to get it out, and I knew I wanted to boil this down a little bit, so I didn't mind adding a little bit of water to it. This should make you at least 5 lunches, depending on how much you need to eat. It may make you up to 7, but as you'll see in the upcoming recipes, I have more than enough servings of the dinner as well, so you can swap those in for lunch if you run out of this earlier in the week, or you can just eat this and the dinners in any order that you want for lunch or dinner throughout the week. You should be able to get at least 15 servings out of the lunches and dinners to eat in whatever order you prefer. I served this with about a half a cup of rice on the bottom of my bowl, and then topped it with several spoonfuls of that bean and sausage mixture. This was very filling and is going to be great this week. For our first set of dinners, we're going to make this shepherd's pie. We're going to use the beef stew mix, and we're going to add that to a pot with half of the can of green beans just to bulk it up and add a few more vegetables to this. And then once this comes to a rolling boil, I'm adding a really basic cornstarch slurry. So just a tablespoon of cornstarch and a quarter cup of water. And then we're going to bring this to a boil, and it's going to just give it more like volume and thickness like you would have in the bottom of a shepherd's pie. Next, I'm mixing up the instant mashed potatoes, and because I didn't include milk in this meal plan, I am using all water, and these turned out perfectly great without milk. If you have milk, feel free to use it, but just know that water is totally good if you don't have room in your budget for milk. Once the soup mixture has boiled and thickened up, I added it to this square 9x9 pan, and I'm just topping it with large spoonfuls of mashed potatoes. Doing it this way will make it easier to spread on the top. So once I get this all covered, I'm just going to spread it out with a spatula, and I'm going to bake this in a 350 oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. But really the key here is just to get the potatoes nice and golden on the top. This makes at least 4 meals. This was pretty hefty and hearty, and so you can probably get a 5th or even 6th meal out of it, depending on your serving size. If you don't want to eat it all right away, feel free to freeze a couple servings of it for later in the week, and then that way you can alternate through your meals and really feel like you've got some good variety throughout the week. This came out of the oven looking really nice. I just did a little garnish on the top to make it feel like something special, and it had a great big serving that kept us very full for the rest of the evening. Our second dinner for the other 3 days of the week is this stuffing Thanksgiving casserole. This was so good and satisfying, so I just mixed up the stuffing mix according to the package instructions, and this came together very quickly. You just mix it in with your boiling water and put a lid on it. And so while that was finishing up steaming, I got my casserole dish out again, and we're going to just mix up everything straight in the dish. So not even a bunch of dishes to deal with afterwards. Next, I'm going to add my can of chicken and just leave the juice in for some extra moisture and flavor there. And then I chopped that chicken up really finely so that I would have pieces evenly spread throughout the stuffing mix. I'm adding the other half of my can of green beans, and then I'm going to add half the can of that turkey gravy that we bought, and then just mix this all together and press it down into the pan. I just baked this on 350 for about 20 minutes again, and just waited for that stuffing to get kind of crispy on the top. This was really satisfying and very much like a comfort food meal, so you will not notice that you're on an extreme budget at all. You can also heat up the rest of that turkey gravy throughout the week to top this with as well if you want a little bit more moisture on this casserole. If you like these types of videos, I hope you subscribe and follow along to Simply Scratch Kitchen for more extreme budget meal ideas. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.